Hey guys, welcome back to Devirai Technologies. This is the bot series on WhatsApp Chat GPT. In our last video, we implemented the functionality for refreshing the Directline token using our .NET controller. And in this video, we're going to continue ahead. The first thing that we would like to implement is saving the token along with its expiry date into a cloud location. I can do it in the Redis cache as well, which is recommended way since it is a costly service. So I'll be implementing this into Azure Table Storage. So what I'll do, I'll save the token, conversation ID, the expiry time of the token. I'll save these three details into the Azure Table Storage. And whenever I interact with the conversation during my Directline API's interaction, I'll pick up the token from the Azure Table Storage, check its expiry date, and then call the respective APIs. If the token is expired, I'll create a new token. If it is not expired, I'll use the existing one. So in this video, we're going to connect this to Azure Table Storage and save these details over there. All right, so let's start. I'll create a new project for this purpose. I'll name this as WhatsApp ChatGPT dot services. And also I'll need some of the dependencies. The first dependency that we need is, I need Azure Table Storage, but I'll be making use of my own package. We have created a service class which we can directly utilize them for storing the data, retrieving it, and querying the data. So I'll be making use of my own NuGet package. And how this works, we'll implement it here. This is how you would need to add this into your dependency injection. Before that, you will also need to add the Azure client. I'll show you the package details. This one. This is how you need to add in dependency injection. What this will do, this will authenticate with your table service. Basically, Azure Table Storage, it will authenticate with that service and it will pass on to your interface and service class. And this is part of Azure extensions. Also, I'll need the configuration here. Since the configuration is not part of this startup.cs file, I'll need to add that. But before that, I would like to convert this startup.cs implementation, basically move this implementation to program.cs file. So I'll just move them to program.cs file and then we'll continue it from there. What I did now, I moved the dependency injections from startup.cs file to program.cs file, and this is how it looked like. Okay. And here it requires the storage account connection string. But before that, let me just get rid of startup.cs file. Okay. So I was saying I'll need the storage account connection string, and let's get that and put it here. I'll use the same name that we have mentioned over here. Perfect. Now let's get the value. This is a resource group that we contains our bot service, and we'll be adding a new storage account over here. Okay. Review and create. I can also authenticate with storage account using my CLI credentials or Visual Studio credentials. But for the faster way, I'll be making use of connection string. Our storage account is created. Let's go to the access keys, copy the connection string, and paste it here. All right. Now, coming to our service project, let's rename this to token service. And I'll be adding the table storage helper as well. All right. Next, I'll implement this. I think save token, it is coming as save token. Yes, I'll be implementing that. So that will be save token async. And it will need certain information. Well, I'll pass it later. But for now, let me get rid of this and create a new project. I'll create this project with the name models. And inside that, I'll create a new folder entities. Inside that, I'll create a new entity, that is base entity. This base entity will be used so that other classes can inherit from this. This base entity will inherit from iTable entity. And this requires me to install Azure Table package. All right. This seems to be fine. Now let's go ahead and add few more entities. The first entity that we need is token entity. Let's name this as DL token entity. So before that, let me first inherit this from base entity. And let's come to the base entity. So we have here partition key and row key. So what I'm going to do is keep partition key as phone number and row key as conversation ID. Okay. And after that, we need two other properties. One of them is token, and second is expiry. It's an integer. Expires expiry date. Let's say expiry date. Okay. So the value that we'll be getting is integer. Let me show you that value. First, I'll generate a Directline token. So here we get 3600, but inside the token, we get the actual time. So we need to pass the token to retrieve the expiry date and time. Okay. Instead of retrieving the token details from the token itself, what I can do, as soon as I generate the token, I'll be getting the current UTC time or local time, and that time I'll save it in my table storage. All right, so I'll get rid of this method that I don't want as of now. Next, save token. Let's try to save it in Azure Table Storage, and here I need token entity. So to do that, I'll just parse DL token entity. I'll reference my model project. All right. Next, I can just save it. So return await table storage helper dot insert entity. What I'll do, I'll upsert entity. So if token is already there in my table storage, I'll replace it. If it is not there, I'll add a new one. Okay. So I'll use upsert entity and token entity. So what all details it requires? It requires a table name. I'll just say DL tokens. That's my table name. And I'll do upsert entity. And this is the entity that I'll be passing. So far, so good. What's the return type for this? Well, I don't need to return anything. Let's just say await and upsert entity. That's all. Okay. Now let's call this token service from our token controller where we are generating the token. I'll reference my service project. Perfect. Next, I'll go to program.cs file and add here my token service. All right. Oh, by the way, I haven't made this as 125%. All right. So what changes I have made? Let me first go to the token service. I have modified the save token, called my absurd entity from table storage helper. This is the library or NuGet package that we have written and published into NuGet repository. And then I have called that service from my token controller where I'll be calling this particular method, save token. And I have added them as a singleton in my program.cs file. Okay. Now coming to token controllers, let's say when we are generating a new token, that time I'll have to do something. Okay. So let's say by the way, the user ID that I'll be making use of will be the phone number because user will be interacting through their phone number from their WhatsApp. So I get these two details from WhatsApp when I receive a webhook or a message from the user. I always receive phone number and what name they have registered for that phone number in their WhatsApp account. So I'll pick up user ID as the phone number and username as the name that they have registered on the WhatsApp account. All right. So let's continue. And here when we generate the Directline token, so let's see what I need to do. Before that, I think we get the conversation ID as well. To double check that, what I'll do, first let's run this one. I'll put a breakpoint here. Perfect. Next, I'll call my API get direct line token. Instead of user ID, let's pass some dummy number over here. And I'll pass the name as well. Let's send the request. I'm getting token as null. Okay, I think I know what's the issue. So I updated my secret. So I'll just get a new secret from the Azure bot service. I updated my secret. Let me just rerun this. There we have the conversation ID, token, and expires in 3600. Perfect. So we do get conversation ID. What I'll do, I'll just add a new property here during deserialization. So I'll go to this direct line token. Oh, we do have conversation ID. Perfect. So this token will have the conversation ID. That's fine. Let's create a new object. Yeah, let's call this method. Okay. So let's go back to our entity class. In the base entity, we have partition key and the row key. In the direct line token entity, we have token and expiry date. Let me add one more property here, conversation ID. Okay. So I'm thinking partition key, I can keep it as phone number, and row key, I can keep it as conversation ID. Okay. So partition key, I'll keep it as phone number. Row key, I'll keep it as conversation ID so that both combined will be a unique combination. Okay. So let's do that. In that case, I'll not need a separate conversation ID property. Partition key, that will be my user ID. Row key, it will be conversation ID. Okay, I'll need to make that as token object. And I don't want to get token. I want to get everything for now. And that will be direct line token, token object. This will be token object dot token. And here it will be token object dot conversation ID, token object dot token, and expiry date will be Okay, this will be date time. This is a required property. Now we don't have the error. Perfect. Okay, so that saves my data and also returns back the token and the user ID. Let's run this out. Okay, DL token cannot satisfy the new constraint on parameter t in the generic type or on method because okay, um, let's make that simple. Perfect. We have the token and we are going to check whether we have successfully saved these details or not. Before that, I'll just check the server. Seems to be no error. I'll go to my storage account, storage browser, table. There we have the DL tokens, partition key, row key, timestamp, expiry date. That's 1 hour, exactly 1 hour, and token. That is really good. So we have successfully done that first step of ours. We have saved it. Now, when I'm refreshing the token, I also need to refresh my table storage data. And how do I do that? So when I'm refreshing the token, what sort of details I'm getting? Let's go to the documentation just to see the details. So I do get conversation ID, token, and expires in for the refresh Directline token. So let's make the similar changes over here. That will be new token object. That's new token object dot token. Perfect. Also, let's call our token service. The partition key will be the user ID, and I don't seems to be finding that user ID over here. That means I'll need to pass those two properties here. Otherwise, it will be difficult for me to find that. Well, I can also find it using the token, but that should not be the ideal case. Or I can also retrieve the details from my token, but again, that also needs to be, that will be lengthy process. For a easy case, what I can do, just pass the details. String, user ID, string username. So that's the easy case. So I have the partition key as user ID. Row key will be the conversation ID token here, and expiry date will be new time. All right, so this will not test it as of now, or I think let's test it out. Let's make a test here. For this to work, I'll need to start the conversation. Basically, open a conversation. So to do that, I'll have to go to Directline API, authorization, replace this, go to open a conversation, open the new conversation, come back here, refresh DL token, add user ID, and add username. Remember, if I make changes to username or ID, let's suppose if I make changes to user ID, what it will do? It will create a new entry in my table storage. If I keep the same user ID, it will update the existing entry. So I'll just go to the previous call, get the user ID, and send the request. Invalid token, the reason being I did not update the token here. I'll just go to the previous request, copy the token again. Before that, let me show you what's the current time. It's expired in 7:46. Okay. I'll go to refresh token, replace it, send. There we have the new token. Also, let's refresh this. It's now 7:53. Earlier it was 7:46. Now it's 7:53. So that works great. And let's suppose if I change the phone number, what it will do, it will create a new entry. It still generates the token, but it will create a new entry here. I'll show you. There it is. Same, different user ID, but same conversation ID. So make sure your user ID remains same to update the existing entry. Otherwise, it will be confusing. Okay, perfect. So we successfully updated our Azure Table Storage with the token details. And whenever I'll be calling my Directline API, I'll call my table storage, get the latest token, call my start conversation, send activity, receive activity APIs, and then that's all. If at all my token is expiring, I'll generate a new one and update my existing entry in the table storage. So that's all. Thanks everyone. See you in the next video.